Football is back, Charlotte sports fans, and we got you all covered right here on Charlotte Sports Today. Who's going to win college? Who's going to win the pros? Who's going to win the BCS championship? Who's going to win the Super Bowl? We got it all covered right here on Charlotte Sports Today. And welcome to Charlotte Sports Today, everyone. I'm Chaz Bryant. I'm pleased to be joined by a guy who's been on the show plenty of times before, calling Carolina Cobra football with me on Charlotte Sports Today. That is Mr. Ken Hall. Thank you very much for joining me here, Ken. We got a lot to talk about in the world of football, college, and professionals. We'll start out with the kids of college. There's a lot of bit of controversy going on, especially in the off season, that has to do with money. Right now, that you got two ACC schools under investigation, UNC, Miami. Where do you think these schools will end up? I know Miami's in the worst position right now.
They are, well, and Georgia Tech got in trouble too.
Gee whiz, it's everybody.
Yeah, it really is. And I think if the NCAA had time to examine everything, it'd be more than 3 schools in the ACC.
Yeah.
I mean, money in college football, that's what it's become. And obviously you're going to have people trying to bend the rules, break the rules, acting in their own best interests. And it's really, I mean, we can find as many scandals as we want to. It just happened to be that Yahoo broke the story. If Marvin Austin was smarter and didn't tweet so much, we might have never even known about North Carolina.
That's the biggest bugaboo, especially now in this day and age, that you have so many outlets of communications with these guys. You got Twitter, Facebook, you know, the social media. Who knows what's coming out there? It's just so. To me, it's a sad thing that all these schools, like I said, Miami, UNC, but you also had Ohio State is one of the bigger ones that you had Jim Tressel, the coach, quit up there because of the investigations going on with his team. I think Boise State was another program. You see right there on your screen, you got Oregon right now is being investigated. They were in the national championship last year. Is it
against Auburn, who had their share of scandals too?
Is this a thing that is going to be so? We're never going to get out of this scandal age of kids taking money. You got 18, 19, 20-year-old kids.
It's not possible to avoid it or the NCAA to cure it. Mm-hmm. Simply because there's so much money involved, and the value of each extraordinary player to the school is in the hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions. I mean, Cam Newton himself, that 1 year at Auburn, generated millions of dollars for that university single-handedly. And so if they did outbid Mississippi State's $180,000, say they paid $300,000, $400,000, that's financially an excellent investment for the school.
Yeah.
And it's against the rules, but at the same time, you can't do anything to stop the free market of economics. And there's really no other way around it other than what the Olympics did, and they just said, yeah, you can pay and get money.
I know we have no clout in the NCAA, but they get millions, almost probably billions of dollars if you collect all the television revenue from all the conferences, the big money from the tournaments and stuff like that. Would it be a good idea to maybe have a stipend for some of these kids? I know some of these kids are coming from backgrounds that aren't probably ideal. Mm-hmm. They probably in situations where, hey, you're going to give me $200, you know, some jewelry, some cars. Just go ahead and say, hey, here's $200, buy some shoes, buy some, you know, some meals, some stuff like that. Why not go that route?
There's many reasons, actually. Number one, so many of the schools are struggling financially. Mm-hmm. Some of the big schools make money through athletics, but there's budget cutbacks in universities across the country, so there's not like a whole pot of money just sitting there. Number two is you'd have to pay so much of the players, and you could never pay them market value. Mm-hmm. Because the elite players, like I said, can generate hundreds of thousands and millions, but everybody else on the team you're probably going to have to pay them the same,
Yeah.
and you're going to lose money from an economic standpoint on what you pay them. And so these aren't kids that are struggling to eat. They're on scholarship. They've got everything they need. You said give them some money, maybe they could buy a pair of shoes. Well, the quarterback at LSU had 49 pairs of sneakers in his room. And so all these athletes, and not just the major sports, but they're getting all their needs taken care of.
And I think what I heard was that for the for the bigger schools, they're sort of, I think football does this anyway, they pay for the other sports, you know, they pay for the tennis team, they pay for the soccer team, maybe the golf team and stuff like that. So it's not like they're not generating money, but they're helping pay for the other sports at the school.
And I understand the argument that the players are the ones working in practice and performing on the field, and the coaches are the ones making the millions, and the schools are getting all the revenue from the jersey sales. The players aren't allowed to get it. But at the same time, paying them would absolutely not help. That would create far more problems.
The big school that's running rampant is, or the one that's generating a lot of the controversy, is Miami, and the term that's been thrown out there is the death penalty, which was done to SMU back in the late 80s. Do we see this sort of situation? Now, I know some people have said some evidence to the contrary that Yahoo has done, but do we see, just in your opinion, I know you don't have any connections down there to Miami telling you your inside sources, but do you think, hey, you guys have broken all these rules every, so often, we may just go ahead and lay the death penalty on you?
I think that'd be extremely unfortunate. What they know about is just one guy that, what it seems like, just wanted to buy friends and hang out with the cool players, and so he obviously was sleazy. He scammed people out of money, and he gave a lot of that money to the University of Miami. And so to eliminate all the good that the football program does and all the people that work for it, that doesn't seem right. And what also is interesting about all these scandals is they're not against the law, and really nobody's getting hurt because they're all free market transactions where both parties voluntarily agree to it. Like the players agree to accept the money, and the boosters and whoever volunteer.
But if you're a student athlete, and you're supposed to be amateur in the sense of being a student athlete.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's the rule, the way it's set up, but at the same time.
So the NCAA probably needs to change. Do you think they need to change their rules?
I mean, that would be a drastic change, and I don't see them doing it. But going along the way of what the Olympics did, if you could find a way to do that somehow, just let boosters give kids whatever they want. If they want to spend their money and give it to a kid, is that going to impact the game? Not necessarily.
Moving on to something that's still staying within the money realm is expansion. We had some expansion last year with a couple of Nebraska going to the Big 10, which is sort of like the Big 12 now. And now we got one domino who really could rattle the whole cage, is Texas A&M going to the SEC. Are we going, first, is it a good thing that Texas A&M will go to the SEC? And will that lay the groundwork for more dominoes to fall, in your opinion?
I mean, I just think it's annoying. You have it's so hard to keep track of. You have all these rumors and schools kind of forming alliances, almost like the big three in Miami. Hey, let's all join up and go here, and then someone gets left out of the party, and it's frustrating because obviously money is the whole reason behind it. The college presidents and the athletic directors say which conference will get me the most money and exposure in the long run. And of course that's understandable. I mean, that's kind of their job to raise as most money, but I don't think there's any way around it. We're just going to have to live with it.
If the dominoes do seem to fall, it would be Texas A&M. There've been talk about Missouri, who's also in that Big 12 conference, going over there. So that'll be 14 teams over there. But if they're also speculating if they want to go to SEC wants to go to 16 teams, it would be Florida State and maybe Virginia Tech coming out of the beloved ACC here in North Carolina. What is that? Where does that lead us down to? Is there going to be mega conferences, as everybody says?
Well, I mean, there kind of already is. I mean, the SEC is certainly football is the mega conference, and everybody else is a step behind.
Yeah.
You know, you'll have an Oregon or a USC have a great year, a few great years, but nothing is close to depth of the SEC.
Yeah, of course. They're in the championship game almost every year. I was going to say every other year, but I think it's been almost every year for the past.
They've won 5 straight, right?
Yeah, so.
And probably a 6th.
Coming up, we'll get into our predictions in just a second, but I heard on the radio not too long ago that if all this scandals happen, they can't clean up the NCAA, that some of these schools, the elite schools, the USCs, the Florida States, the Texas, they'll just form their own college association.
Right.
Is that a good idea?
I don't think so at all. I mean, I'm sure they would have a go if the rules were set up for them to do so, but there's over 100 Division I football teams and 300 basketball teams, and the schools ranked 100 to 300 in basketball, you know, they have a lot more votes, so they're not going to let them. But I mean, it's kind of already happened with the BCS.
I was going to say, it's almost like the
big schools were like, we're going to set it up our own way so we get to keep all the money and don't have to share it with the smaller schools. It's
unfortunate, so hopefully something will come about this. Coming up, we'll go to our college football predictions. Will the SEC go to their 6th straight national championship? Can the ACC even make it in there to get in there for the first time in probably over in a decade? We'll come up with our predictions in just a moment. All right, it's college football prediction time. We're here at our mock ESPN touchscreen, just all over the place. Have at it. We're going to first start with the SEC. Last year, it was Auburn who won the SEC championship and went all the way to the national championship, winning on a field goal. Do we have a repeat out of the West of the SEC for Auburn?
For Auburn, no. We may from the SEC West, yeah. The conventional wisdom was that the winner of the Alabama-LSU game would go on to win the SEC championship and the national championship. But now LSU, a little bit of a bump in the road, so it makes it even easier for
a criminal record would have that bump in the road. Let's take a look at the West. You got Auburn, Arkansas, LSU, Bama, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. Do we see Mississippi State do anything?
They might win a couple games.
But we don't see them going to the championship.
They may go to a bowl game.
May go. Ole Miss?
They're an excellent school. They have beautiful women there. Football, not so much.
Alabama?
Oh, yeah.
You see Alabama doing something? I think so, too. LSU? I think LSU will be in the mix this year. If they can.
Right.
Who knows? Some time
if
served.
They use it as a rallying point and rally around their poor victim of a quarterback that was wrongfully persecuted for kicking someone in the head.
Well, that's what happens whenever you go to, I like to have brawls not sanctioned by any sort of athletic association. You don't have Auburn. So who are we picking to make it out of the West to go to the championship game of the SEC?
Alabama.
You're picking Alabama.
Yes.
I'll put it up there. We can't see it, but it will somehow put it up there. In the East, you got South Carolina, who had a pretty good last year with Spurrier up there.
A lot of people like South Carolina. I can't wait to see Clowney play. I think he's going to be a beast on that line. But when you put all your eggs in the Steven Garcia basket, something bad's usually going to happen. So I actually like Florida.
Well, can I go through the list first?
No, there's only two
Florida,
significant
Georgia,
teams.
Tennessee,
No.
Kentucky, Vandy,
Vandy is another excellent school.
but we don't see them making it pretty far this year.
Maybe in basketball, not football.
Kentucky, I don't see anything happening with them.
Right.
Tennessee is sort of in a rebuilding year after he had the guy from the coach.
Lane Kiffin?
Lane Kiffin, yes. He likes to just up and leave.
They need Fulmer back.
I don't think he's coming back. Georgia, the Dogs.
Yeah.
They could be up there, can't they?
No, Georgia's going to have a terrible year, and then North Carolina is going to hire Mark Richt, and he's going to win a national championship.
Wow.
Yep.
Well,
I just
you
figured that
heard
out.
it here 1st, folks. So you got South Carolina versus LSU,
No, Florida
Florida
versus Alabama.
in the championship game of the SEC.
Yep. And a
Let's-
rematch of the Tebow games.
But Tebow's not with them this time.
Not yet.
He's gonna somehow
never
get a
know.
5th year of eligibility. Let's move on to the ACC. I don't know what I just did there, but I'll put something in there. Yeah.
ACC.
Let's take a look at the Atlantic Conference. You got Florida State, Maryland, NC State, Boston College, Clemson, and Wake Forest all up there. Who jumps out to you to make it to the championship game of the ACC?
The ACC is not going to be nearly as exciting as the SEC.
You don't. Well, it's never is, but
But I mean, it's already determined who's going to play in Charlotte for the championship. It's going to be a rematch, Virginia Tech and Florida State.
All right,
There's
I
really nothing that can change
I
that.
can't even go through my whole list of teams there. Of
No. Well, I
breaking
mean,
down.
if you got time, we can.
Well, we're gonna have to fill an hour for something.
An hour? I don't have that long.
So you said Virginia Tech and Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, that's just easy.
Yeah, Maryland hasn't been up there.
Right.
I think they made it to the one ACC championship a couple years ago, falling off NC State. They always show potential,
Right.
but never able to make it up there. Boston College, they usually have some good seasons, and usually in contention. Clemson, Wake Forest, meh.
Right.
Then you got the Coastal Virginia Tech, which has already been determined. I can't even go through the whole thing. You're just shooting me down already.
Well, since you're not giving predictions or arguing, does that mean you
No.
agree with all mine?
I got no dog in the fight, so
Okay.
that's my whole thing. I'm just here to mediate and host. But you got Miami, UNC. UNC, I thought last year would be able to do something, but of course,
It was, yeah.
they still,
It was impressive how well they did despite the.
the problems they
Right.
had. Georgia Tech usually stays up there and usually puts up a good fight. Virginia, they might make it to a bowl game. Maybe.
Right.
Maybe. And then Duke. Duke is Duke when it comes to football.
We've already spent too much time talking about Duke football.
The Associated Press top 10 poll was released not too long ago. Number 1 is Oklahoma, Alabama. Number 3 is Oregon. 4 is LSU. 5 is Boise State. Number 6, with ACC's first entrance is at number 6. 7 is Stanford. Texas A&M is at 8. Oklahoma State is at 9. And Nebraska, with the new Big 10-12, is up there at number 10. When everything shakes out at the end of the year, which team is going to be up there playing for a national championship on the big board? Who's
I like Oregon and Alabama.
you just pointed to Maine State. No,
University of Maine Black Bears are a sleeper, but I don't think they can beat Oregon or Alabama this year.
are we going to see? Is this going to be a boring year for college football?
Absolutely not. It is going to be crazy.
So none of
because-
these teams I just said in the top 10,
Right.
they might not even be up there. I know the
Oh, of
powers
course.
usually
Well, yeah. We know preseason polls are useless, and they shouldn't do them. The only reason they do them is so they can hype the games for TV. Say number 3 versus number 7, and all that nonsense. But yeah, we don't know who's going to be good, which is one reason I'm really looking forward to this college football year. We have no idea what's going to happen, and then this has been the most intense offseason as far as scandals and all that, and we'll get to see how that translates to on the field play, which teams it hurts, and who just steps up out of nowhere.
Let's take a look, just rounding out the rest of the Southern teams in the top 25 poll. You got the only other lone entrance in the ACC is number 13, Virginia Tech. Then the SEC sort of just dominates the rest of the field. You got number 12, South Carolina, 15, Arkansas, number 19, Georgia, number 20, Mississippi State, sort of high up there, number 22, Florida, and number 23, Auburn. We don't really think these teams are going to be falling too much out of that.
No, so that's, what, 7 from the 8?
Eight. Yeah.
8 of the top 25, and we're talking about them expanding to get 4.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be like the SEC basically is the top 25. Well, then what's the even point of having a conference?
It's going to be a big, huge super conference.
Right.
That will sort of wrap up our college football predictions, but we'll have some NFL talk right after this. Big board. As you've seen, the commercials have said football is back, and so are the Carolina Panthers. And with the first-round pick of this year's draft, the Carolina Panthers selected Cam Newton of Auburn University. So far, Cam Newton, well, he's sort of been underwhelming maybe with the, it's only preseason though, folks. And I wonder if he can sort of step it up. Can Cam Newton really become this new hype, this new wave that brings up an age of winning seasons in Carolina for us?
Absolutely, he can. I mean, will he?
Yeah.
It remains to be seen. A lot of people think he can.
Yeah.
And even if he can't, you know he's going to be fun to watch,
Yeah.
which already sets apart this year's team from last year's team.
Well, we had, what, 3, 4 games we won last year? 2?
2.
2 games. I guess there's no real reason he can't do more than what he's done right now. There's no worse except winning no games or 1 game. We're taping the show on August 27th, so there's been 3 preseason games. And preseason games are preseason games, but they're sort of a, I don't want to say light to see what players are going to do, but Cam Newton's numbers haven't been spectacular.
Right.
I don't think. I've only seen bits and pieces of the games. But are we hoping too much more? Is there a time where I think, man, that Jimmy Clausen was a lot better than Cam Newton? That's not going to happen.
I don't think so. And Jimmy Clausen never really had a chance in the quarterback battle. But we also need to keep in mind that there was a lockout. Rookies didn't get the normal preparation. And not only that, the whole team is learning a new offense. And
with a new head coach.
Yep, new head coach, new everything. So it's going to take the Panthers a little bit longer than it normally would.
Let me sort of go back, and you just mentioned that every team didn't have a chance to go out there and do what they really wanted to with this lockout. I believe the lockout was set, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before they opened up training camp, so guys couldn't have their books. How much is that going to hurt what we see out there this year? Is it going to hurt maybe the first couple of games this season, or is it just going to be a thing all year round saying, man, this just looks sloppy out there?
Yeah, it's certainly not going to last all year. I mean, if it's sloppy towards the middle end of the year, that's due to other factors than the lockout. That's just due to poor play. But hopefully the coaching staff is smart enough to not throw everything at them at once, maybe kind of give them time to master parts of the playbook and then add in the others. But you can't use that as an excuse. I mean, when they kick off, I mean, you got to be ready.
Yeah.
And that's one thing Cam Newton has demonstrated throughout his career all last year, is that if things aren't perfect, he can still find a way to get the job done.
What teams does this favor, having that sort of shortened training schedule? I know my Jets have a still good nucleus. I'm pretty sure with veteran guys, there weren't too many changes on some of these teams. We've seen a couple of guys shift around. Philadelphia is one team that made a lot of free agent signings. They seem like a dream team, quote unquote. Is all these new guys coming in and learning the playbook, is that going to help them or hurt some of these teams? Who doesn't help and who doesn't hurt so far?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's that big a deal. They've had a month and a half to get everything ready. I mean, obviously it does help the veteran teams with stability between the head coach, offensive coordinator, and the quarterback. So, Patriots, Saints, those teams will have less to learn, and so they'll be readier to play quicker, but at the same time, there's no reason why the Panthers can't be ready to go in top form September 11th in Arizona.
Are we putting too much value, going back to Cam Newton, are we putting too much value on these preseason stats, these preseason numbers? Is he still going to be the starter when John Fox calls his name out week 1?
Ron Rivera.
Ron Rivera, my fault.
All right, John Fox is going to call Tim Tebow and say, Kyle Orton, you need to sit down.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be the starter. Normally, you don't worry about preseason stats, but in this case, you really want to look at it closely. Not necessarily the stats, but just how he's adjusting to his first ever professional game. And so it does matter. He's looked great at times and looked very inaccurate at times.
The biggest thing I think, from what I heard, is the secondary. That secondary needs help on the Panthers. I wonder if it's going to be more on what's going to be the bigger problem so far this year, the secondary of the Panthers or the quarterback play of the Panthers.
Well, the thing is, at least there's potential for the quarterback play to be great. With the secondary, you don't even really have that hope. Like, you're hoping for it to be average and not severely undermine what the rest of the defense is doing.
Well, teams are going to be picking off that secondary.
You think so?
With good,
And what makes it worse
out there.
is that in the preseason, the defensive line has looked terrible. They've just been running straight through the Panthers. So,
well, not even good teams. The
Right.
Miami Dolphins
Right.
and Cincinnati Bengals up there.
I mean, the optimistic part of me thinks the Panthers are just not, doing everything because it's the preseason. Maybe instill a false sense of confidence in their opponents. Maybe I'm just being hopeful, but yeah, it could be ugly for the defense.
Who made the best off-season moves with the this season? The shortened strike labor situation. The Philadelphia Eagles were talked about to be one of the best teams who made moves. Dream team was quote unquote thrown out there with some of these guys. I just don't see it. When I think dream team, I think of that 1992 Olympic team. That's where it's coined from, and they ran over everybody. I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to run over everybody, and we'll have our predictions later on, but there's some teams in that division who can really knock them off.
Yeah, I mean, they were a good team last year. They weren't great. Michael Vick played phenomenal for the first part of the year. One injury to him, and you're trotting Vince Young out there. It doesn't matter how great the Eagles secondary is if he's throwing it to the wrong team.
If Vince Young is, they can't really be their savior on that team, can they? He's been so sporadic. He's had a couple of really good years.
Right.
Then the whole works just went off of him.
Right.
Do you really want him as your backup trying to save your dream season?
Maybe, because when he's playing well, he's as good as anyone and as difficult to defend as anyone.
Yeah.
So certainly worth a chance.
All right, Ken, you ready to make your ironclad NFL picks?
I've done a lot of research, and I'm ready to make a bold statement.
Bold statements coming up right here on Charlotte Sports Today right after this. We return to the big board again for our ironclad this year.
I like what you've done with it.
Yes. Yes, I do too. Our ironclad NFL predictions will start with the AFC, the 4 teams made up of the New England, Miami, New York Jets, and Buffalo. The New England Patriots and my New York Jets made it to the playoffs this year. Let's first say who is not making the playoffs in this division of the AFC. Those 4 teams.
It's really easy. You're starting me off with the easy one. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Yeah. Miami and the Bills have no chance.
Miami and the Bills have no chance.
Yes.
That's easy.
And it would be shocking for the Patriots or the Jets to miss the playoffs.
You think so?
Yeah.
We'll move on from there. We'll go to the AFC North. You had Pittsburgh and Baltimore going to the playoffs. The rounding out the rest of that division was Cleveland and Cincinnati, who was not making the playoffs. No chance.
Right.
No doubt in your mind is not making the playoffs in that division.
I don't think teams from Ohio are allowed in the playoffs. But Pittsburgh, they're a year older.
You don't think they'll? And is there any doubt in your mind?
Yeah, yes, there's doubt.
So we won't
They're
have
on the
them right
fence.
now.
Right.
But who is the first cut? You have no chance. You're saying Cleveland and Cincy have no chance of making the playoffs.
Cincinnati has no chance. Cleveland has,
Inkling.
yeah, a snowball's chance.
So we'll
in
hold
the
off on
microwave.
them. We'll come back to them. We'll come back to them.
Right.
Let's go to the AFC South. You got Indy, Jacksonville, Houston, and Tennessee. Indy was the only one who made the playoffs in that division, who has no chance of making the playoffs in that division.
The Jaguars have a chance of not even making it through the year as a franchise. So, I don't. And then Tennessee, I can't rule out. Texas, can't rule out. And of course, Indy. So
we'll just keep.
the only one that
we'll
needs
take
to
off
go
Jacksonville.
is
We'll
Jacksonville. Right.
Sweep them somewhere off the screen.
Off to LA.
And rounding out the AFC West, good grief. Kansas City, San Diego, Oakland, Denver. Who has no chance? You cannot say all 4 have no chance.
I don't. Right, because someone has to.
Someone has to.
Right.
And
Even like last year with the Seahawks with the
Yeah.
2-14 record that made the playoffs.
There's no chance in the AFC West. I'm going to say Denver,
Oakland, I don't know.
and I didn't like Kansas City all that much.
Okay. Well,
But
Kansas City played well last year. They got Castle, one of the best running backs, my first-round pick in fantasy. In Denver, how could you, when you combine the forces of Tim Tebow and John Fox, are you kidding me?
yeah,
How will they lose
I
the game?
kid you not. Let me count the ways.
Well, they don't really have a defense, but other than that,
Denver has no chance.
and they say Tebow can't throw, I think that's a myth. They're just haters.
Okay.
They're jealous.
So, but who are you knocking off?
Oakland.
Oakland, knocking off Oakland. I like Oakland.
They're not really a football team. They're more like a track team.
Let's move on to the NFC before we get our playoff picks for the AFC. We'll go to the NFC and say who has no chance of the NFC West. Philadelphia made the playoffs. Then you had the New York Giants, Dallas, and the Washington Redskins. Who in the NFC East has no chance of making the playoffs?
All of the 4 can make it.
All the 4 can make it.
Even the Redskins.
There you go. But you can only have 2 in one division. So we'll just keep all of them up, and we'll come back.
What do you mean 2 in 1 division?
You have the division leader. Oh, well, I guess 3 can make it.
Right, 3.
The two wild cards. Thank you very much.
But not all 4.
Not all 4
Unfortunately.
can make it. Let's move on to the NFC North. Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota. Both the Chicago Bears and the world champion, Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packers made it to the playoffs. Who has no chance? None. No chance of making it to the playoffs.
Again, all of them.
You like another one, man.
Yep.
This
Detroit.
It's not mathematically possible, but I do like Detroit.
Yeah.
They seem stronger to me this year.
Obviously, it's awesome to watch Sue play. He can win a game by himself, which he
Yes.
almost did in the Big 12 championship game. But Minnesota, man, they've fallen quickly, but when you've got the best player in football and McNabb has something to prove.
So you maybe see them rebuilding, but
Yep.
another again, so you're going to punk out and say all 4 of them can make it. So we'll move
Yep.
on. That's all right. We go to the NFC South. You have Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and our Carolina Panthers. Both the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints made it to the playoffs. Who has no chance in that division of making it to the playoffs?
The Saints.
The Saints.
Yep. They lost Reggie Bush.
So you have a inkling that Carolina and Tampa Bay will make it.
Yeah.
You have some doubt in your mind?
Yep.
Okay. Well, you're not going to get ran out of town.
That's my NFC Championship prediction.
We'll get you back there in just a second. The NFC West is made of Seattle, St. Louis, San Francisco, and Arizona. The Seattle Seahawks somehow made it to the playoffs last year. They actually won versus the world champion New Orleans Saints, who has no chance of making it to the playoffs.
I don't really consider that division part of the NFL. So let's just
Canadian
move on.
League.
Yeah.
As
I
part
mean,
of
they
the league.
try. I mean, but
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. So we're somehow going to erase all of
just
that division, but
leave
you have
no
to pick
evidence.
one. Let's go back to the AFC races. You narrow down who's not making it. Who is going to get in of the teams making it to the playoffs?
It's going to be Baltimore
Baltimore
and the Jets.
and the Jets. I mean, but who are the other
championship
six?
The other four that make New
Yeah,
England,
the
of
division,
course.
New England.
And
the North, you got you already said Baltimore,
Right.
Pittsburgh.
I'm going to leave Pittsburgh out for now.
You're gonna leave them out. Who in the South is going to win that division?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Wow, that's
Yep.
a bold statement.
Yep.
We'll put it up there on the
Chris
big,
Johnson,
big board.
2,300 yards.
Wow.
And
The West.
I'm going to pick the Colts as my second wild card.
Well, let's go to the West. We'll put
Okay.
two in the West is Kansas City, San Diego, and Denver. Who's winning that division?
Phillip Rivers will not let me down.
You're taking the San Diego Superchargers.
Yes.
And your wild cards were
Indy and New England.
in New England. And a man out of my own heart, you're saying Baltimore versus the Jets.
Yep.
The AFC Championship game. Who is winning the AFC? Doom, 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 drum roll.
I'm not just saying this because you're my boss, but I really think Sanchez has matured enough, learned from his mistakes. I think he's going to do it.
I may submit you for that Sports Emmy this year after all. So thank you very much, and I'm not paying you. Figuratively and literally, I'm not paying you.
What?
We'll talk about it later. Let's move on to you already got my Jets in there. They're making it to the Super Bowl. The NFC, the East, I know you said you liked all four teams. Who's winning the East? Jets, Giants, Dallas, and
The
Washington.
Eagles are set up perfectly for disappointment.
They
Everyone's
will.
hyping him up. Michael Vick played so well last year. It seems like teams figured him out towards the end of the year. I don't see them being nearly as good as people think they are. I think the Giants are kind of a sleeping duck. No one's really talking about them. Half their defense is injured, but the other half's really good. So.
Okay. Now we move on to the North. Again, you liked all four teams, but you can only choose one division winner.
Right.
Who's it going to be?
Detroit.
Detroit. Wow.
Yep.
You really like them.
Yep, I do.
Wow.
Stafford has played in about half his games as a pro.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be healthy.
That's interesting. I like Detroit myself, but I wasn't going to put them up there. I was going to have them as maybe a wild card.
Right.
But I wasn't going to put them up there.
I mean, I guess Green Bay is kind of good.
kind of good.
Yeah.
Even with having injured players on the team and still winning the Super Bowl.
Right. Now with them healthy, that's going to screw up the chemistry. So.
Okay, so we'll put Detroit up there as
Yep.
your division winner of the NFC North. Let's go on to the NFC South. Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Carolina Panthers. Who's going to win the South?
This is tough, but Atlanta.
Atlanta.
They're the best team.
Yeah, they'll repeat.
right.
I believe that'll be the first time first time in this division in a while that there's been a repeat champion. So
I'd love to pick the Panthers as an upset, but I just don't think they have the pieces on defense to make
Okay.
it happen.
good idea. And let's go to the NFC West. We have to, by I guess league rules, there has to be a winner in that division. You can't pull down a CFL Canadian team, so Vancouver can't come down and whoever Vancouver Argonauts or whoever it is.
No, we really need to give the NFC West playoff spot to the
Yeah.
NFC East team. We could get a petition going. It'd be in
Uh,
the best interest of the
Seattle,
fans,
St.
of the
Louis,
game.
San Francisco, Arizona. One of them has to, by a league mandate and rules, have to win.
Right. You know what?
Just
Because
close
the
your
NFC
eyes.
East is so good,
Art.
Kevin Cobb is going to lead Arizona to the
Okay.
playoffs.
That's not a bad pick. You know, it's a safe pick. Pretty good. Wild cards. 2 wild cards.
Yeah, I think there's going to be 2 this year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is.
And I am going to go with Dallas, Tony Romo.
Dallas back in the playoffs.
Yep. Tony Romo this year is going to have an Aaron Rodgers year,
Okay.
where everyone was saying he couldn't win the big one. Yeah, he's a good quarterback, but this year Romo shuts him up.
Cowboy fans happy about that. And the other one is
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay.
Yep.
Okay, so we got 2.
So that means the Panthers not this
No,
year.
not this year.
Next year.
Who's going to be in the NFC Championship game?
Let's see. Absolutely the Cowboys.
The Cowboys making it all the way to the big game
As much as I hate Jerry Jones, I just think they're going to do it.
versus
Let's see. I'm going to have to say Detroit.
wow
Lions.
Gee
Yep.
whiz!
Yep. Yep. I mean, I
Man.
was doing the calculations
And you
and
came up with
I
Dallas
didn't-
and Detroit.
yeah, I didn't want Detroit to be there because, you know,
Young
that's
team,
a dumb pick,
rebuilding
but
team.
I mean, that's just the way it
Who's
played
going
out.
to the Super Bowl versus my New York Jets?
It's going to be the Cowboys
The
and the
Cowboys,
Jets.
Cowboys and the Jets.
Yep.
And the world champion Super Bowl winner is Dallas
Sorry.
Cowboys.
Yeah.
Well, you don't get that raise. So you got the Dallas and the Jets.
Yep.
And Dallas Cowboys will win the world championship. Ironclad
Tony Romo.
Tony Romo.
Des Bryant, game-winning touchdown.
Wow. All right. There you go, folks. Ironclad, they're locked in. This will be a time capsule. We'll wrap up the show in just a moment. Good picks. Appreciate it, Ken. I think you can stay on even though you have my New York Jets not taking home the hardware this year.
Well, yeah, at least I have them going there.
What are the percentages? I'm just bouncing questions off you. What are percentages of the Texas A&M actually leaving to go to the SEC?
I would say 88%.
88%. That's pretty high up there. What are the chances they go to 14 teams and 16 teams and taking a school from out of the ACC?
Well, they'd have to pick either
Yeah.
14 or 16.
So
But
what's
I'm
the
gonna
chances of them
say-
picking out an ACC team and going to 16?
I think it's pretty high.
Pretty
I mean,
high? Uh-oh.
well, see, Florida State would help the SEC.
Yeah.
But they're almost in an ideal situation where they're in a BCS conference and they can dominate the conference. When you'd have to play Alabama, LSU, Florida, you know, 1 or 2 losses could knock them out of the national championship picture. So I say Texas A&M would benefit from a switch to the SEC. Florida State would
No,
not.
Yeah, I don't think so either. What are the chances that that Philadelphia actually becomes a dream team?
0.
No chance. They're going to go all the way and
Yeah.
win.
I think they're due for some bad breaks.
What are the percentages that Miami gets the death penalty?
2%.
2%.
Yeah. They're not
Very,
gonna do
very
that.
small, but
Yeah.
they have a small inkling
Yeah.
of them.
There's one sleazeball. I mean, you can't kill a whole program because of him.
What are the chances that a team relocates to Los Angeles and becomes an NFL team out there
Well, 100% eventually.
within the next 5 years?
I would say actually pretty low.
You think so?
Yeah, they're having so many arguments and, you know, fights over where the stadium would go and all that. I think they're far away.
Final question. What are the chances that Brett Favre comes back and plays on a team?
50%.
50%.
Yep.
Wow.
Nobody knows. Not even him.
All right. Thank you very much, Ken Hall. I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
We thank you folks for watching. We'll see you next time here on Charlotte Sports Today. The percentages of that is high. High, my friends.